So, let's talk about what's widely considered the gold standard for online gaming, the Malta Gaming Authority license. We're going to break down how this tiny island became a global powerhouse, what it really takes to get your hands on this elite license, and, help you figure out if it's the right move for your business. Let's dive right in. It sounds a little crazy, right? Like something out of a movie. But that's pretty much exactly what happened in Malta. And honestly, it's a perfect analogy because it just nails the island's incredible transformation from a quiet little holiday spot into the absolute undisputed hub for the entire iGaming industry. And we are not talking about a small-time operation here. I mean, look at this number. The iGaming sector in Malta pulls in over 2.9 billion euros in revenue every single year. To put that into perspective, that's a whopping 17% of the entire country's GDP. That number alone tells you the incredible scale and economic weight of what we're talking about today. So, the big question is how? How on earth did this happen? How did Malta manage to position itself as the world's iGaming capital? Well, let's take a look at the key moments that built this pretty incredible success story. It really all kicked off back in 2004. While a lot of other countries were still just debating what to do, Malta took this huge pioneering step. They became the very first EU member to create a proper legal framework for online gaming. And that first mover advantage, it was absolutely crucial. By 2014, the industry had just exploded. And fast forward to today, it's this mature, super sophisticated ecosystem that employs over 11,000 people. Okay, so that history brings us to the system they have today. A huge piece of Malta's success puzzle is its regulatory framework. A few years back, in 2018, the Malta Gaming Authority, you'll hear them called the MGA, they took a pretty complicated multi-license system and streamlined it into the much simpler, more modern approach they use now. So these days, there are basically two main doors into the Maltese gaming world. The first is B2C, that's business to consumer. This is for all the companies that are facing the players directly, your online casinos, your sports betting sites. The second door is B2B, business to business. This is for all the tech companies working behind the scenes, the ones building the games, the software platforms, and all the other critical stuff that the B2C operators need to function. And if you dig into that B2C license, you'll see it's broken down even further. You've got a Type 1 for things like casino games and slots. Type 2 is all about fixed odds sports betting. Then there's Type 3 for peer-to-peer games, think poker or bingo. And finally, Type 4 covers skill-based games like fantasy sports. This really detailed structure is what allows them to be so specific and clear with their regulations. Okay, so you've figured out which license you need. Now comes the really hard part. Getting an MGA license isn't, a walk in the park. It's much more like running a gauntlet. And it's specifically designed to weed out anyone who isn't 100% serious and fully prepared. The whole thing can take anywhere from 30 to 50 weeks. Seriously. It all starts with what they call a fit and proper test, where the MGA does these intense background checks on every single key person involved. Next up, they basically tear apart your business plan to make sure it's financially solid. Then it's a deep dive into your tech and compliance, checking everything from your game software to your anti-money laundering procedures. And the final hurdle? A systems audit, where a totally independent party comes in and tests your live platform to guarantee it's secure and fair. But if you actually make it through that gauntlet, the rewards are massive. And this is where you really start to see why the MGA license is truly the industry's gold standard. So why would anyone go through all that trouble? Well, first and foremost, player trust. That little MGA logo is like an instant seal of approval for players. You also get full access to the huge EU single market, and it opens up doors to banks and payment providers who might otherwise just say no. On top of all that, you get to plug into this incredible ecosystem of local talent. And, of course, there's the very, very attractive tax situation. And that brings us to this little number right here, 5%. Now, Malta's official corporate tax rate is 35%, but they have this unique refund system that can bring the effective rate on profits you pay out all the way down to just 5%. That is one of the lowest in Europe, and it's a massive financial magnet. An EU license, instant player trust, a 5% tax rate? I mean, it almost sounds a little too good to be true. So what's the catch? Because there's always a catch. Well, the catch can be summed up in one word: substance. This is not a paper license you can just get from a PO box. The MGA needs you to have a real physical presence on the island. They want to see genuine economic activity to push back against any of those tax haven labels. That means you need an office, you need local directors and employees, and your critical data has to be stored right there in Malta. And this is the big one. Your key business decisions have to be made in Malta. They even do unannounced on-site inspections to make sure you're not just a shell company. But here's what's so fascinating, and it's kind of a contrast to all those strict rules. Unlike a lot of regulators who can feel like an adversary, the MGA really tries to position itself as a partner. A lot of their staff actually come from the industry. They get the business and they work with operators to find practical solutions. Their goal is a clean, successful industry, which means at the end of the day, they want their licensees to succeed. Okay, we've covered the history, the framework, the pros, and definitely the cons, so now it's time for the million-dollar question. Is the Malta gaming license actually for you? Look, the answer is actually pretty clear-cut. The MGA license is perfect for you if you're an established, well-funded operator who's looking to really solidify your reputation and expand in Europe. But if you're a startup, you're on a tight budget, this is probably not your starting point. The costs and the sheer complexity are just way too high for most new ventures. And this chart really puts those costs into perspective. The exact figures are always going to vary, but your initial B2C costs can easily run into the hundreds of thousands of euros. And that's before you even factor in legal and setup fees. The annual compliance cost alone, as you can see, can hit 250,000 or more. This is a serious investment for serious players, which really just reinforces its status as a premium, top-tier license. So let's just end on this thought. For any company out there with the ambition and, frankly, the resources, the MJA license isn't just another option on the table. It's a strategic goal. It really represents the pinnacle of regulatory compliance and market access. So the question isn't really if you need it, but more like when will your operation be ready to take that step?